Hello and welcome to another segment of the LPE Author Chat series. I am Kimberly K. LaBoo, CEO and founder of LaBoo Publishing Enterprise. This month, we are featuring authors from the soon-to-be-released anthology, Women of Virtue, Walking in Excellence, inspirational stories of character, wisdom, courage, and strength by visionary author Tasheka L. Green. Our special guest on this evening is Michelle Hammond. She wrote the chapter, Giving Excellence a Standing Ovation. Welcome to the broadcast, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, Giving Excellence a Standing Ovation. So tell us why you chose that title for your chapter.
Well, first I'd like to say thank you for having me on tonight. I appreciate it, Kimberly. I appreciate it very much. When I asked that question yesterday, so when I talk about staying into excellence, because we talked about the virtuous woman, and everybody always to talk about the virtuous woman, her being like this perfect
Right.
person. So when we talk about excellence, it's some things in my life through the trials and tests that happened in my life. I can say excellence. I gave it a stand up when I could have turned it around another way. So that's where I came up with that title for that chapter, Giving Excellence a Standing Ovation. Because through some of the tests, some of the trials I've been through life, that's why I can say I took it with excellence when I could have took it the other route.
True, so true. I think that's true for a lot of us. So in your opening or in the beginning of your chapter, you said that you could recall moments when you believed that life was going to be a struggle because of the obstacles that you had faced. And so you talked about finding out at the age of 10 that you were adopted. So talk about that and what that was like for you.
Well, and as you said in the beginning, I don't want to share all the parts of it, but
Right.
that was just like it hit me in my face. Like
Yeah.
I always felt like something was different, but I didn't know why it was different. But when they came together, we came to talk about it, that I was adopted, even though I was adopted in the family. But it was like, wow, I understood why I was so different, and I felt different, but then I knew who this other person was, and that was like questions rolling through your head, like, why didn't she want me? Why did she give me away? Those are things that you feel like you want to know. And there's like a whole nother side of person that I didn't really know about.
Right. Right. So you wrote, born to a 15-year-old who herself struggled with dysfunction in home life. Your biological grandmother decided that it would be best for you to be given to a family that would better tend to your special needs, and you talked about that. And then you said for years you grew up having identity issues after discovering that you were adopted. So what did that look like for you and feel like for you?
That that you another person, another life. Just like today, I tell people today I have two identities because I still have my original birth certificate from when
Oh,
my mother gave me. It's just like you two people. So what happened through all those, for those 18 months that my mother had me, my biological mother had me. So it's like I always wondered, like, what could have happened then? What can have happened now? What's going on now that make it so different from why she wouldn't keep me? I just always had that in the back of my mind.
yeah, I've heard that a lot from people who are adopted. But you talked about how you considered your adoptive mom to be your real mom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who she was?
Well, I can say both James and Betty were my parents. Even though I had a biological parents out there, they were my parents. That's the only parents that I knew. Those are the only parents that I, been around. But she was very, I can say she was very protective of me. And I can also think of that too, because she couldn't have kids of her own. So it was, she couldn't have children of her own. So she was very protective where I went, who I stayed with. I can remember times I might stay at cousin's house, but sometimes it was always no, you're not going out. And that was another thing. Why why? These are family. Why? But she was just so
Mm.
overprotective over that. And I'm thankful and grateful,
Yeah.
for that. But it was kind of challenging. I couldn't understand
Hmm.
at that young age at the time either.
Yeah. So you wrote, when I was about 15 years old, my adoptive mother, Betty, had a heart-to-heart conversation about my life or the future. In this conversation, she shared that she wanted me to connect with my biological mother and build a relationship with her. I felt confused and thought to myself, why in the world would she want me to connect with someone who gave me away? Well, in 3 weeks, I understood why. So tell us, why does she want you to meet your biological mother?
Well, that's the part of the story that I often think about and I look at now as knowing of God in my life. I always look like He always prepares you, and
Yeah.
that was a part of her preparing me for what was going to be taking place. Because I will say that she was telling me this for a reason. Because days after that, she passed away, and she
Wow.
wanted me to have a bond with my mother.
Wow. That is so powerful. When I read that, I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, yeah, and I remember her last words. I was getting ready to go to a basketball game that night, and she was like, "You need to be careful, but you all remember, mommy loves you." Those are the last I can still
Mm,
remember those words. And then for her telling me that I need you to, because I'm not going to always be here. That was what she was saying to
mm,
me at that time when she was explaining to me that
yeah,
I need for you to really connect with your biological mother. And I'm like, why in the world? You're not thinking at 15 or
right.
you're really, really thinking about that. But yes.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So you wrote, a few months went by and my biological mother reached out to me to tell me that she had adopted a little girl and she wanted me to come and meet her. I thought to myself, how dare she ask me to come meet someone that she had adopted but had given me away? I'm like, I would have had that same, I think I would have had that same response. Like, what?
I'm very, Kim, and that's one thing I'm very transparent about that whole situation. And even
Yeah.
even even today, my stepfather, he might be watching, and he's still my stepfather.
Uh,
Yeah, I remember taking the journey for them to go meet this child who was later that they adopted, the first child that they adopted.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, I was like, yeah, yeah, really, it was kind of hard pill to swallow. And
Yeah.
it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's more goodness into this story. I know you done
Mhm.
seen it, so
Yeah. Yeah. So wow, yeah, I would have had that same that same reaction, like, what? And as you said, that was just the first adopted child. So that kind of went on and on. And that's more about that in the story. They have to get the book.
yeah, yeah.
But and so then you talked about years, you said years went by and I became pregnant with my first child. And of course, who do you turn to for help when you need some clarity on how to raise a child? I thought your mother. But in my case, I felt I had no one to turn to. So you had asked her for help, and you said that her response was not something that you expected. So tell us what her response was.
Well, her response, and like I said, I'm being transparent. There's a lot of family members don't know, but I
Mhm.
was just had my first child, and I was going through some things, and she was like, "Well, if you really can't handle it, there's social services for you." And I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
I'm like, "What? If you really can't handle it, those are where social services is for you." So yeah,
Mm,
and that was like a real milestone hit in my face. So that's why I always been determined never to. I mean, I can ask for help, but that's how I always been that person to persevere through. Because I mean, the
mhm.
challenges, and I know how I felt, so I wouldn't want my child to feel like that. So
Right. Absolutely. So from there, you had several other life-changing moments, from being homeless to being in an abusive relationship. But somewhere along the way, things started looking up for you. So how were you able to, you wrote in the book that you didn't lose your character and your strength through all of that you had gone through. So how were you able to hold on to your character and strength during such trying times?
well, that's one thing why I try to give back to that. And a lot of people wouldn't even know that. It is so funny, Kim, you brought it up about the homeless part. I was actually at my job maybe about a couple months back, and my cousin, who I would go to an aunt's house to change clothes or whatever else, didn't even realize that I was home. She was like, there's some more of those family secrets. I was like, and then I had to refresh her. I was like, you remember I would come early in the morning and I
Wow.
could do that, and she was like, yeah, now that all sinking in. I was like, yeah, that was the time when I was homeless. But so happened I had called in to social services or whatever. And one of the caseworkers, and she's still working in the county today. She
Mm,
was the one to help me. That's how I got my first apartment and all that type of stuff. But I still kept on stress. I was working part time in the cafeteria at the school, and my rent was like $400. When I sit back and I look at it today, I was only bringing home $196, and this a message for someone. He
mm,
some way he sustained it. I have a roof over my head. I had car insurance, all of that. And I still was struggling, but I still did what I had to do and persevere. That's why I say so many things have hit where
mm,
could have gave up. Some people could have lost their mind behind some of this stuff, but I still persevered and kept on enduring for the
mm.
end. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's so important because life is going to hit, right?
Yes.
Life is going to
Yes.
come at us, and it's in those times, for especially for your character, um, it will show either more of who you are or who you aren't. So kudos to you for being able to hold on to your character and your strength through so many trials. Um, so towards the end of your chapter, you talked about love, letting love and forgiveness prevail as it pertained to your biological mother. How were you able to do that?
So again, as I said, this journey of me and my mother, biological mother, it has been a rough, rough to deal with because I always had in the back of my mind, why did she give me away? It wasn't until I was late into my late 20s that I found out the real reason why.
Mhm.
That she gave, that the reason, I
Yeah.
was told that she gave me away because she couldn't handle all what was given on. But I really
Mhm.
got the real foundation of the structural reason why. And then when I look at it, it was for the better. So God already had knew. Um, and I still felt little bitterness. I'm like, I had my own kids, and I would
Yeah.
see how she treat the adoptive kids, and that brings some tension.
Yeah.
And like 7 years prior, she died in 2010. So like
Mhm.
7 years, the 7 years prior to that, I can say after that, we grew closer.
That's
Um,
good.
we grew closer. And then the last thing I will say, even when I talk about circumstances with character, as I said about the jobs that I've had where I've been turned away, and I know I'm qualified for this stuff. And,
Mhm.
I could have been mad, angry, but all of that
Yeah.
helped me pray into where I am today with her, that whole situation, because I had to end up burying my mother. I had to end up
Mm.
burying my mother, had to end up taking care of her, taking care of her needs. Um, I'm getting ready to tear
Mm.
up now. I had to end up taking care of
That's
her
all
needs.
right.
I had to end up taking care of
Mhm.
her needs at the end. She died from pancreatic
Mhm.
cancer on Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So yeah, Christmas Eve, and I just said I had to forgive. I had to forgive. And when I look at that excellence of this story, the virtuous woman, you crown with jewels, because I feel as though he done crowned me, because they say when you take care of your parent, no matter what, it says honor your mother and father, no matter what. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So your
Woo.
days will be long. That's
Yes,
okay. That's
yes,
okay.
yes,
And,
yes.
and and to that point, with it being such an emotional story, what was it actually like for you to go back and revisit? Because these are some hard topics that you wrote about in your chapter. So what was it like for you sitting down to pen this story?
Um, it did open up some things, that it when writing this, it did open up some things. It brought back the memories. Some of the brought back some of the memories, but then it helped me to even
Yeah,
say, look, you really got to get this out here now, because somebody is waiting on this. That's
yeah,
one of the things that made me press even more with this story to tell it, because you never know. So many people are adopted, and they
yeah,
go through so many things, identity crisis. I can say I met a lady a couple weeks ago. The same thing with her. We go through identity, and I just want people to understand that. Try to figure out the story, because you're always in your mind like, why, where am I, who am I, and what
Mm-hmm.
am I? What is my purpose out of that? So if it's anything anybody gets out of this, it's about forgiveness. But in all your trials and your tribulations, still hold on to your character. Because like I said, a lot of time I be smiling on it. People don't really know how I really feel, but sometimes it gets heavy sometimes, because you're a giver. And that's one of the things that I just want to give and be transparent and help somebody else, because somebody
Yeah.
helped me along the way.
Mhm. And as I always say, that there's healing through writing.
Yeah,
And and even if it's just writing for yourself, writing to get your story out, and writing to just release, there is healing through writing. But as you said, it like everything that we go through is not for us. It's
not
for
at
someone
all.
else. And so when we open up and we begin to share our testimonies, we find out, like you said, you run into other people who have experienced the same thing, or they're trying to work through that, and you hold their answer,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so I commend you for doing that and for opening up and sharing so authentically in your chapter. So, what would you say to encourage other people who may be thinking about telling their own story or writing their own story in their book or in an anthology like this?
I would say, Kimberly, your story can lead to someone else's answer. Do not
Mm,
be afraid to share. Like I said, a lot of people, some of my family members don't even know half the stuff. So they, like I said, don't let that be a hindrance to you. Move forward, because and it is healing in writing. So every time when I come upon these, this was a project that I know was called to be into. So when we talk about walking into it, um,
mhm.
and again, I thank Dr. Tasheka Green for that. But yeah, I just would say, go ahead and get it out there. Get your story shared out there, because someone else, put it this way, Kimberly, I will say this. I always believe that you're here on a purpose and you are linked to someone. You might not know who it is, but your destiny is caught into someone else's chain for them to make a purpose. So that's what I would say. If you have that story, get it out and get it written.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree. So I think you did a lovely job with your story, and thank you for saying yes. What was it that made you say yes to this project?
Well, I will say I was on another project and Dr. Tashika was there, and we've been social media people, and I've actually met her beforehand through another networking, and it's just something about her authenticness. It's something about, and it spoke volume to me, and I know her work,
Yeah.
so it spoke volume to me. And when it was a part of when she said walking in, but it talked about courage. And I
Mm,
think you're giving out courage when you're sharing your story. So as powerful as it says, walking in your excellence and with wisdom. Well, it's wisdom that talks about understanding. So it's something that we have to understand, that we are not here just to be here. We need to be fulfilling our purposes. And that's one of the things. That's another reason why I contributed to this, because I need someone to understand my story as well, and walk them through what they need to get through.
amen. Amen. Wow. So, are there any parting thoughts that you would like to leave with our audience on tonight?
One again, learn to forgive
Mm,
and just know that every test and trial that you go through is we already victorious in it. It's just how we mechanism and get the strategy on how to walk into our victorious moment with
yeah.
that. So never give up, persevere, because, and again, as don't quit. Don't quit on the mission. Don't abort your assignment. And like we were saying yesterday in the interview, this was an assignment.
Mhm.
Everybody was in agreement with this. So don't
Yeah.
abort your assignment. If he give it to you to place it out here to help someone else, do it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I just want to visit one point you said learn to forgive. How
Yeah.
does someone learn to forgive?
And I will say, and it does not happen overnight.
Right.
It does not, it can take years, it can take decades, but what you need to do, you need to free yourself, because if you don't forgive, you're not freeing yourself. So if he said the captives are free indeed, I want to be free indeed. So
Yeah.
I would say be free and forgive. Forgiveness, you are free when you forgive.
Yeah. And I always say forgiveness is a daily walk and it's a
Yeah,
daily choice, actually. And
yeah,
so
you're correct.
yeah, I agree. But they say forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. It's more about
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
That is so true. Well,
Most
thank you
definitely.
so much for joining us on this evening to talk to us about your chapter of Giving Excellence a Standing Ovation. And thank you for being a contributing author to Women of Virtue Walking in Excellence by visionary author Dr. Tasheka Green. So thank you so much. And I look forward to finally releasing this book so that everyone can read the depth of your story, because we only touched on a few things
Yeah,
here, but they have to get the book to read the full story. And so
right.
it's and to our viewing audience, thank you so much for joining us for another segment of the LPE Author Chat series. This has been the special edition of the LPE Author Chat series with Women of Virtue Walking in Excellence contributing authors. And so remember, if you are someone who is thinking about writing your own book, head on over to www.laboopublishing.com and connect with us there. Take care and good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.